Health consultation review for client 1. So evaluating your answers to the questions in general, you can see that there's actually a lot of positives to take from it. A few negatives here and there, but mostly positive. So if we review your goals, generally we can take a very positive outcome from them. You've given yourself quite broad targets, which would allow me to adjust them so they're realistic and achievable for the time frame we have. So you've obviously said that you want to improve your diet and gain more muscle. So improvements in diet and gaining muscle can be done together, perhaps by combining weight training and a protein-based diet. This obviously makes the goals go in hand with each other nicely. The lack of focal point could be considered an issue, as you don't have a specific area that you want to lose weight or gain muscle. You haven't specified if you want to gain muscle in your arms or your legs. But obviously, this means that we have a broader platform to work with. So I can obviously ask you more about that as we kind of come to plan your lifestyle and training. In relation to physical activity now then, this is perhaps the most positive part of your health screening, which is great as physical activity obviously has positive correlation with most other aspects of life. You participate in a lot of physical activity, mostly in rugby, but also cycling, meaning you kind of have a range of exercise to go to. This makes training programs a lot easier as we can make use of your multiple interests and have that kind of varying in your training sessions, making it a bit less tedious. There's obviously always the option of increasing your activity levels, because that usually doesn't make anything worse and can only make things better. But I wouldn't focus on this as your activity levels are very healthy. Nutrition is an area that could be improved. Whilst for the most part you eat cooked meals as opposed to ready meals, which is good, that's something positive to take from it. You said you do sometimes skip breakfast, which will have a negative impact on your body. Skipping breakfast can lead to weight gain, which obviously counteracts your goals of weight loss. Perhaps the most negative part of your nutrition is the snacking between meals, though. Snacking can obviously lead to weight gain and tooth decay. If you snack excessively, kind of go over your recommended calorie intake. It will also affect your appetite when it comes to main meals, meaning you perhaps don't eat the right amount at main meals and don't end up eating those meals. Therefore, I would first recommend seeing a nutritionist, as they can give you specialist advice in relation to your diet and the correct adjustments. However, you've obviously come here to see me, so as far as the advice I can give, I suggest looking together with me at a selection of healthy breakfasts for you. I think we should also use your phone as a means to track what you eat and when, and perhaps create a food questionnaire to kind of get a gauge for what sort of foods you actually like, so we can adjust this in an appropriate manner. This will all obviously combine to allow us to create a plan where you are eating healthily and losing weight at a healthy rate while gaining that muscle that you want to. I will go into more detail about the nutrition changes that I want you to make later on in this review. Generally, your lifestyle is pretty positive as well. You don't smoke at all, which is obviously going to be very beneficial for your lung functionality and aerobic capacity, which is actually shown in your peak flow tests. You also don't drink regularly, which will mean your liver is fairly healthy. In addition to this, your sleep pattern shows that you get the recommended 8 hours, which should aid your cognitive functionality, making your decision making in rugby better and obviously helping in everyday decisions. Despite this, you have shown high levels of stress as a result of college work. That was something that you mentioned. Obviously, again, I'll go into more detail later on in the review, but I would suggest use of a stress ball and perhaps the Headspace app for meditation. Finally, in relation to your physical health and medical history, whilst you said you did have injuries in the past with shin splints and back pain, you currently don't have any issues or injuries of any sort, which is really positive for the goals you have. As you've said, you want to gain muscle, and this could potentially mean use of weights to gain that muscle, so the lack of injuries makes that a lot easier, as I won't have to worry about the strain of weights as much. In relation to the actual tests then, generally you have very positive results for most of them. You can see that heart rate here, your resting heart rate is 64 beats per minute. And if you look at that in relation to averages, you actually are in line with good. So above average, which is really good, really positive. Your blood pressure is also normal, which is really positive. If you look here in correlation to averages, you are pretty much perfect on average. Both those two I would correlate with the amount of exercise you do, because obviously exercise is going to lower your resting heart rate as a result of hypertrophy. So that rugby, I would assume, is the reason for those positive heart rate and blood pressure results. Looking at your lung function, you got a score of 525 on your peak flow. That is above average, which is really good. That's probably a result of you never smoking or drinking or anything. That's good. Your waist to hip ratio is 0.86, which is average for your age. You can see here it's pretty much in line with average. Small margins here make it look like there's a difference, but pretty much average there, which is good. The only concern I have from your results is actually your BMI. So you got a score of 26.7, which, if you look at the normative data for that, actually puts you in line with the overweight category, as you're above the healthy. That's a very small margin though, so it's not too much cause for concern. However, it is something that I would like to look into a bit further, as you were considered in the overweight category. But looking at your activity levels, I would suggest that maybe that could be muscle mass as opposed to body fat. So I would suggest maybe doing a body composition test to see if it's actually fat content or muscle mass. If we look a bit more in depth into the actual lifestyle changes that you can make then, and how we can kind of affect those test scores positively and reach those goals that you want to achieve. If we focus on nutrition first then, I'd actually like to get you to download a food tracker app. The one that is pre-downloaded on lots of Apple devices is just the health app, and that not only obviously tracks your physical activity levels, which could help you in general, but it also tracks your diet, what you're eating and when you're eating. So that will obviously show if you snack, because you've said you've had tendencies to snack, which we do need to change. And it will also show the sort of foods that you tend to lean towards, which will help me in planning what sort of diets to create for you. Also, you said you also skip breakfast, and breakfast is actually a really key part of your diet. It really sets you up for the day and really helps your cognitive functionality. decision making and stuff at college, which if you're doing better at college, that's going to reduce your stress as well. So I'd actually like to sit down with you and kind of take a look at a selection of breakfasts together. This should allow you to choose the most appealing breakfast to you and allow me to kind of make sure that those breakfasts are healthy options. It should hopefully encourage you to eat breakfast more regularly and skip it less, because it should be enjoyable. I'd hope to get 3 options, 3 outcomes, so that you can vary them on days you're not eating the same thing every day. I also hope to get you to complete a food questionnaire. This would be a series of questions just based on the types of food you like to eat, what you tend to snack on, what you tend to have at meals and stuff. This obviously, again, get a gauge for what foods you prefer, and means we can adjust your diet to be something that you like, which is also healthy. All of these factors will combine together and allow us to, at a future meeting, sit down and perhaps create a diet plan for you, which will help you hopefully lose weight and gain muscle simultaneously, achieving that goal of yours. So yeah, that food tracker, the app, would be for a duration of 2 weeks, and we'd hope to get 3 options for your breakfasts, and the food questionnaire would be once, so that shouldn't take too long. In relation to your general lifestyle then, I'd actually like to create a weekly planner with you. This will allow me to kind of track when you have spare time, so that we can kind of get a gauge for when you have time to do your work, so you can plan ahead. You said that your work causes you a lot of stress at college, so finding those spare time slots and creating time for you to do that work while simultaneously having spare time to relax, I feel would be very beneficial for you. I also think that you should download the Headspace app, which is a meditation app. This will obviously allow you to spend time to relax and will reduce your stress levels that you are experiencing. I'd suggest perhaps doing this every evening before you go to bed, sitting down and using this app. You could maybe also purchase a stress ball. They're fairly cheap and actually proven to help release stress, and it's something that you can kind of carry around with you daily, and which will help you with your stress when you're out and about as well. Finally, I'd suggest trying herbal remedies such as lemon balm or herbal teas or lavender in your pillow. These are all known to help soothe your mood, relax your muscles and reduce anxiety. But if you continue to get stressed even after these suggestions, I'd suggest seeing a professional about this. Perhaps going to healthline.com. That's a website that deals with stress and anxiety. But yeah, those are my suggestions, which I would seek to use first before seeking professional help, as that could potentially help you. So yeah, overall, we'd look to create that weekly planner and get that into action immediately. The Headspace app I'd like you to use nightly before bed. And herbal remedies, that lavender can be in your bed every evening in your pillow. And teas, perhaps not every evening, but maybe every other evening before bed. In relation to your BMI test then, a lot of it I've mentioned already. So firstly, I'd look to use a skin fold caliper, or BIAA test, which will allow us to see if it's fat or muscle content, and will indicate if BMI is actually a concern. I would also suggest eating less fatty foods, which will obviously reduce the amount of fat stored on the body. That will look to be adjusted in the nutrition part as well, though, and in your diet plan we will eventually create. In relation to actually burning off that fat, I would suggest high intensity interval training. Obviously, this will be included in the training program that we eventually make together, but I want this to be done at least once a week because this training method is probably the most effective in burning fat.